Let's take a look at creating some equipment in Plant 3D. Take a look at your Home tab, and we're going to go over to the right, and while in the Home tab, we're going to look at Equipment. Now, if you notice in the Equipment panel, you do have several tools here. You have a Create equipment where you can go in and create Plant 3D equipment. You can modify existing equipment. You can convert equipment, and by convert, we means if you have something that you've created in an AutoCAD 3D solid, you can go ahead and create it into a plant model. You can attach equipment. So this is kind of a combination. Let's say you do have something that's created in AutoCAD Plant 3D, and you have something that is, let's say, a stand or a support that was created in regular AutoCAD. You can add that into the part. And just as easy as you can add them, you can detach them as well. You also have a tool here that is used for converting Inventor equipment. So if you've created an AEC export file, that's going to be the ADSK file, whenever you're creating an Inventor part, you can take that part and you can bring it into the Plant 3D environment, and it becomes a very robust part of your 3D model. Let's go ahead and visit the tool that we can use to create equipment in Plant 3D. If you go ahead to your screen and then make sure that you're going from the Home tab over to the equipment, you'll see that there's a tool there that's Create Equipment. And if you're using your dynamic input or your command line, it's Plant Equipment Create. Well, we're going to go ahead and activate it from here. And you'll see that our first one that comes up is a vessel that we're given several choices for, what kind of parts that we want in it or shapes that we want. We can give it a tag number, but we have many other choices as well. And let's say that you pick something like a filter, then you'll notice you don't have any suggested shapes, but you're more than free to add any shapes in and build it as you go. But right now we're going to concentrate on just doing a regular vessel. I'm going to make it a vertical vessel, and I'm going to take a look at the sizes that we have. We have a 2-foot diameter here, and then we have a 2-foot diameter in our cylinder, and the other toruspheric head is also 2 feet. Now the only thing I want to adjust here is this is 20 feet. I'm thinking that that's maybe a little tall, so I'll just go ahead and change that to 15 feet. And then I'm going to go ahead and create this. You'll see that I can choose an insert point. I can use my snaps or not and go ahead and place this into my drawing. And then all I have to do is use my compass to rotate it in the direction that I want to do. Now let's take a look at how we can make a little bit further modification over to this vessel that we just created. Of course, within Plant, you will always have some options if you right-click on whatever you want to do, whatever you want to change, and then go into its properties. If something's grayed out, you won't be able to change it from the properties panel. Doesn't mean you can't change it at all. You'll just have to go into a different dialog box. And then the ones that aren't grayed out, you could change. Right now we have color set to by layer. If for some reason you wanted to override that and make that a red tank, then you could do it there. You could even change, the layer that it's on. It's on a 0 layer right now, but if you wanted it to be on a different layer, you could do that. So those are some of the options that you have. You can change things within the properties panel. And there's other information that you can get from the properties panel as well. One thing I do want to look at right now is taking a right click on here and using the modify equipment, you can take this back to where you actually created it before. And I notice now that I did not give my tank a number, so I'll go ahead and I'll add a number to it, and I'll just take the next available number here. I'll go ahead and assign that. And I also want to be able to bring my tank up a little bit because I'm going to raise it so that I can put it on a stand. So I'm going to go ahead and raise this up 6 feet. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and apply it and say OK. And you'll notice now that my tank has been raised up. And if I hover over it, my tank now has a number on it. All right, let's go in here and do some further editing to this vessel. And since it's kind of in the middle of things, I want to just make it real easy to work on. I'm going to go ahead and select this vessel. And then I'm going to go into my visibility panel. And I'm going to use my Hide Others tool, which is going to allow me to hide everything except the vessel that I'm working on. Now, if you notice, we're going to zoom in right here so that you can see that on this nozzle, there is a disconnect because you can see the water drop coming from it. And what we want to do is we want to continue routing some pipe from there. Now, one thing I want you to pay close attention to is make sure you know which spec that you're in at the time, because it is going to matter. I'm going to set my spec here and make sure it's on a 300-pound, because the nozzle coming from this tank is a 300-pound nozzle. So those two things the spec has to, you have to have the parts in the spec to be able to route the pipe essentially. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to select the vessel, and you'll see we have this little plus icon which allows you to continue pipe routing. Now I can add in a specific distance that I want to route. And remember what I can do, if I hold down my control key, I can right click to change on my plane. I can also change the plane by going down here. And so you can cycle through planes that way as well. All right, so you noticed everything did continue routing the way that it was supposed to, and it even created the flange here exactly where it was supposed to create the flange. All right, another thing that we can do with our vessel here is we can add a nozzle to it. If you click onto the vessel, you'll see that you do have a tool to add a nozzle, another nozzle to it, or you can also right click on it and you can choose add nozzle. Now when you choose to add a nozzle, what that's going to do is bring up another dialog box, and you can pick the type of nozzle that you want to add. You can put a size on here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put an 8-inch nozzle. I'm going to keep the end type as flanged, although you do have other options here. I'm going to keep the unit as inches, and I'm going to keep the pressure class here. Now you notice that these are some of the nozzles that you have in your spec available, so you can go ahead and you can choose one of these as well. Now another thing that you can specify is the location of the nozzle here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that I want to place this one on top of the vessel. So by using this drop down here, I can choose the top, and you'll see now in this picture representation that I have, kind of shows how. Now, do I want this offset? If I do want it offset, then I need to type in the radius of how far offset do I want this. How far do I want it sticking out? I have it sticking out at 1 foot right now. And then the angle, if I do have it offset, what angle do I want to put that in as? And I want to make sure that this nozzle is perpendicular. So I'm going to go ahead and check off this right here. I'm going to keep the equipment tags as the same, and I'm going to keep the symbol for nozzle the same. So I'm going to go ahead and close this dialog box. And once I do that, you'll see that I have a nozzle coming out of the top of my tank. And if I click onto that, I can continue pipe routing very easily, just like I can with any other nozzle that is a part of the equipment. Now, the last thing I'll mention about creating this vessel is that you still have many other options that you can use, but don't forget that you can always still move these by grips. So if you go in here and you select this vessel here, all you have to do is find the grip. Now be careful with this one. Remember, we jacked it up just a little bit. So if we do need to move it, we can move it, and we can move it at a specified angle. I can move this over 14 feet at a 45-degree angle, and I will get it exactly where I want it. And also don't forget that if you do need to change anything in your tag information, you can still assign the tag. Perhaps that I really don't want that to be number 1 and I wanted it to be number 5. I can make that change right here and then go ahead and assign it there with that. And so now you see it's labeled as equipment. We're still on the 0 layer, and it's been given tank number 5 as its tag number.